Hello and welcome to the DSP Project, your weekly fix of music production and technology. I'm your host Rupert Brown, and this week I am reviewing Amplitube 3. It is a amp simulation modeling software by IK Multimedia, and it's basically a huge amount of kit. You get 160 different pieces of gear, and that is made up of 51 different stomp boxes, 31 preamp and power amps. You've got 46 speaker cabinets, 15 mics and 17 post amplifier effects. So it's a huge amount of gear, and the cool thing is you can actually interchange all these different bits and put the stomp boxes all in different configurations and basically tweak it out to however you want it. You can select the mics that you want. You can even set the mic positioning of the mic in front of the cabinet. So a very flexible piece of software. So let's first have a look at the interface. Okay, starting from the top left, we've got the preset, the name of the preset that's currently selected. If I click on that, we get some little drop-down menus, and we've got the Go to Preset Exchange if you want to get more presets, or under Amplitube 3, we've got amps for a bunch of amp and cabinet combinations, or under Complete Rigs, we've got bass, clean, crunch, extreme, effects, and lead. And under each one of these subcategories, you've got a huge big list of different presets to choose from. So one of the nice things about this is you can get started very quickly, and as we're about to see, if you want to, you can really drill down into the detail. Next we have the BPM. Now I'm currently running this inside of my host DAW Ableton Live, so you'll notice if I change the BPM of the current project, that the BPM inside of Amplitude sort of naturally follows along. We've got tap for tap tempo, so if I wanted to tap along with something else, then I can set a custom BPM. As soon as I change the BPM on my project, then it snaps back into place. So I'll put this back to 195. Moving along, we've got the preset browser. So this is a nicer way of viewing your presets. You've got the name, a description, the instrument that it's designed for, and the sonic character. And you've got a search category here as well. So I've got like the ambient sound selected at the moment. So just in case you're interested, we can have a listen to this little loop I've got playing here. And this is what it sounds like clean without amplitude. And amplitude back on. So I've got sort of an ambience one, but if we wanted to take that to extreme, say something like death. Space at the front there. Try that again. Death. Sure, something like something a bit more hardcore there. Let's go back to another kind of ambient preset. Okay, that sounds a little bit more appropriate. Okay, so that's the preset browser. We can save our own presets or delete them, so we can get a build-up of our own configurations. Then we've got the quality mode. Now, Amplitude can be quite heavy on your CPU, particularly with all the room mathematics that it's trying to do. So you've got quality modes here to go easier on your CPU. So you can see here I've got basically just one loop and one instance of Amplitude running, and my CPU is up to sort of 22%. And this is a Mac Pro with an i7 processor, 8 GB of RAM, so it's a pretty well spec machine. So if we drop it down to eco mode, it's considerably, just almost halves the amount of CPU required, but you can really hear the difference, particularly in the reverb between the two. So I'll let you have a listen. So as you can see, the quality mode, it's less noticeable on some of the more heavy stuff, but I think it's particularly the like the reverb stuff that gets scaled back, I think, with the possibly different algorithms when changing the quality. So moving over to controller, you might think this is for mapping, but it's actually just for IK's own products, Stomp.io and Stealth Pedal. So they create their own hardware products that obviously will integrate very nicely with this package, but that's all the controller section is used for. Now we've got a signal chain shown here of all our different parts coming into the tuner, stomp boxes, amplifier, cabinet, and then rack. Now you'll see 8 buttons here, and these are basically our different routing options. So you can see at the moment it comes into the tuner, into stomp pedals A, then stomp pedals B, into cabinet A, B, and rack thing. So basically bypassing cabinets, amp B and cabinet B. So I'll just show you the different routings you've got available. So running in a parallel mode there. I'll just quickly flick through them. So basically you've got a bunch of different routing options there, which is quite important. Quite important. You can do a lot of different things just by changing the routing. So next you have mono in. So something that's quite interesting is if this package was designed solely for, I'm going to stop that loop now. If this package was designed solely for guitars and basses, there's probably no reason why you'd have a stereo mode. So that kind of indicates to me that they have put a bit of thought into this, and it is kind of aimed for people using it for all sorts of things, keyboards and synthesis and things like that. So it's while it is an amp simulator, it's obviously they've had it in mind that people are going to use it for a lot more than that. So we can change between mono in left or right. That's grayed out at the moment because of the routing option, I think. Yeah, so we can change that to a stereo, mono, or left or right. Next you have the tuner. Now this is obviously a guitar tuner, so if I turn this on here. So useful if you need to tune your guitar, but also useful if you want to try and figure out like melodies. If you've got something like a sample-based melody that you've got somewhere that you've thrown into your track, and you want a quick way of figuring out what notes are inside of it, you can actually use the guitar tuner to find some of the notes. So that's a good little trick I learnt from Jezza. Thanks for that one, Jezza. That can be quite handy for quickly finding the notes in a melody. So next we've got our stomp pedal setup. So I'm going to change the routing here so it just basically goes through. And this is just blank boards now because we haven't got any pedals selected. Okay, I'm going to turn our tuner off. Okay, so back to the stomp pedal. So I've got a slot here, very similar to how the preset thing works. We've got delays, distortion, dynamic EQ, filter, fuzz, modulation, pitch, and other. So I'm going to start by putting in a wah. So sounds quite nice. And now let's pop in. Let's put a distortion in. Let's say a big pig. Now what's quite cool about this is while we're playing with it, we can easily just drag and drop to rearrange the pedals. Which, as you can hear, can dramatically change the sound just by changing the order in which our processors are working. And let's try and put a tape delay in there. That sounds particularly terrible, but you get the idea. So basically you've got a whole bunch of pedals here, and you're free to kind of put them in however you want. As you can see, you've got 6 slots here, but if in this particular instance we've got 2 pedal boards, so that's 12 spaces, so you can use 12 different pedals. And there's, like I say, as you can see here, there is a bunch of different options. Okay, moving over to the amps themselves. Again, this is going to be dependent, what controls you have is going to be dependent on the amp that you've got selected. So in this case, you know, you've got sort of basically what you'd expect to be on the front of an amp. You've got sort of bass treble controls in this case, spring reverb, volume controls, and it all kind of behaves exactly. Let's turn that horrible stomp stuff off. Turn that off again. And so yeah, the amp controls do basically exactly what you expect them to do. Spring reverb. So no big surprises there. Moving over to the cabinet. Now this is where it gets quite interesting. So we've got all different models of cabinet to choose from. You've also got different microphones and different room sizes as well. So a lot to change how the reverb and things work inside the room. And we can position the microphones not only left to right, but also back to front. So you can see in this little top-down graph here, we can move the mic further away or closer, depending on how much room you want to get into the sound. Moving over to the rack. So in this case, we've got a tube compressor in this particular preset. Again, we've got delays, reverbs, EQs, chorus. And so that's how the signal flow goes. And then we've got a bypass and a mute, which works for just the particular unit that you're looking at that moment. So if we've got our stomps on, we can hit bypass, and that will bypass the stomp. And so now the signal's basically going straight from the tuner to stomp B. So I'm obviously not going to go through every pedal and every preset and every option and every knob on everything, but I think you've got a pretty good idea of how the interface works. And as you can see, there's a lot of choice here. Down the bottom, we've got some basic controls for the input. We've got a noise gate as well as some options for the selected module and the output. Master output levels as well. Going below that, we've got basically just some preferences and user section. Now there's also a standalone version for Amplitube, which gives you like a basic little 4-track recorder unit that sits down the bottom here. But as I'm running it inside of my DAW, I don't have access to or require that. So as you can see, it's quite a nice straightforward layout. You've got quite a few options there. Now this is clearly aimed at mainly guitar and bass players, and if you know me, you'll know that I am a terrible guitar player and a far worse than average bass player to boot. So why have I got this package? Well, I don't generally put guitars or bass instruments through them at all. I use it for sound design, so I'll put drums through it. I'll put a lot of, mainly for my synthesis, for my bass lines and things like that, if I want to add a bit of grit or a bit of distortion. Basically I just use it as a tone, coloring, saturation, distortion type of tool, and for that it works quite well. Now they've obviously realized that people will use it in this sense because it now has a stereo mode where in previous versions of Amplitude I believe it's just been a mono, which is what you'd expect if it was strictly for just a bass or guitar instrument. So they've obviously had this in mind when they've built it as well. It's quite well thought out in that sense. Now, all of this stuff is all very good and well, but it means very little if it sounds like crap. So how does it sound? How's the sound quality? I think it sounds really good. They've done a very good job here. Very clean. You can get some real bite and crunch out of some of these sounds. But don't take my word for it. I'm going to give you some demonstrations. What I've done here is for the first demo, I've got a very subby straight bass sound, and we've got Amplitude over the top. I've got a parallel split happening so that the bass is not being affected by the plugin. So from 300 Hz down remains clean so that the sub wasn't unaffected. So we're listening from 300 Hz up, all the mid and treble portion is running through the plugin. And I'm just going to skip through a bunch of different presets. I haven't got them in any particular order. I'm just skipping through the bunch so you can hopefully hear the full kind of gamut of what this package is capable of. After the first subby sound, I've got a second bass line there as well, and the second bass line has a lot more top end stuff happening on it. So I will again play that clean without the plugin, then engage the plugin. So let's have a listen. So I think you'll agree this is a really great sounding plugin. You can get a huge range of sounds inside of the kind of amp cabinet modeling world. There's also, you can get some more really quite trippy stuff when you start getting into some of the effects that the Stompboxes can provide. I think if you are a bass player or a guitarist, then this makes a hell of a lot of sense. Check it out. I think IK do like a 30-day demo, which is really good, so you can try before you buy. But I think given the amount of equipment that you're getting here, it's well worth it. If you tried to buy these as individual plugins, it would cost way more. And as far as hiring a studio and renting the different cabinets out, forget about it. It'd just be ridiculous in cost in comparison. On top of that, they have recently launched a store, so you can buy even more different parts, different stomp boxes and cabinets for it. So it seems like IK are really committed to this product and turning it to almost like a platform where you can go and add more parts to it, as if the first 160 bits of kit wasn't enough. So all in all, it's a big thumbs up from me. It's great sounding. It is flexible enough that if you want to use it for sound design as opposed to guitar and bass type applications like I do, it works fantastic for that. One thing I will say though is it is quite CPU intense. It's quite a hungry thing, so don't be expecting to be putting one of these on top of every 32 different channels because your machine probably will crash and burn. But from a sound design perspective, you're probably going to make some sounds, sort of render it down, in which case it works fine. Yeah, so big thumbs up. I like it. Get a free demo, check it out. If you have this package or you tried it and you've got some comment or opinion on it, we'd love to hear it. Head down to TheDSPproject.com and leave a message underneath this video. And while you're there, if you could subscribe, that really helps us out. Or if you want to send me an email direct, you can get a hold of me at inbox@TheDSPproject.com. That is all we've got time for this week, kids. I'll see you next week.